Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Experience Beyond podcast. In today's episode, we are diving into a very groundbreaking topic at the intersection of technology and business strategy, which is decoding the future of VoC and VoE strategies. I am Anand Nigam, your host, co founder, and director of XEBO.ai. Here at XEBO, we have been at the forefront of leveraging cutting edge AI to revolutionize customer and employee experiences, creating solutions that drive measurable impact. To explore this fascinating subject, I am honored to welcome a visionary leader in Jonathan Hawkins. Jonathan
Thank,
is the founder and CEO of Anthrolytics, where he is redefining standards in customer and employee experience management through the power of predictive analytics. With over a decade of expertise, Jonathan has helped leading organizations harness analytics to bring digital empathy at scale. He is also a visiting lecturer and a board advisor, sharing the knowledge and guiding the next generation of CX and EX professionals. Today, Jonathan will help us unravel the secrets behind predictive analytics, exploring how businesses can better understand their customers and employees, identify opportunities, and stay ahead in ever-evolving landscape. We are excited to have him on the show. Welcome, Jonathan.
thank you very much, Anand. That's quite the introduction. I do hope I can live up to it.
Oh, you definitely have, and you have been doing some incredible work, Jonathan. You have worked on some incredible projects in CX and predictive analytics. Can you share the journey that led you to co-founding Anthrolytics and
Yeah,
how it's
absolutely.
setting new, yeah, and also how it's setting new standards in customer experience management?
Absolutely. So my background has always been in software and always around what today is broadly CX. So I kind of break CX down into two areas. One is CX at the point of interaction, which is where I started my career within contact centers and that type of technology. Which I think really was my sort of early introduction to analytics. You know, how do we start understanding proactive contact? How do we start understanding how to analyze the calls and the data that are coming into contact centers? Um, and then I moved from there to a company called Satmetrics, who were um, really probably most famous for co-creating the Net Promoter Score, which I think
Absolutely.
probably everybody who will be listening to this will be very familiar with. So, you know, I'm very deep grounding in Net Promoter Score methodologies, you know, customer journey mapping, obviously. And that was a very interesting time in my career because I think it was the combination of that and the customer experience at the point of interaction that really led us towards this path of Anthrolytics. And so really, I think what both of those experiences, and I'm talking obviously, you know, sort of 20 odd years of experience by that time, right? Was that yeah, there was something of a lack in terms of what people could do with the data, which you know primarily was technology led, obviously, right? I mean, we're very fortunate nowadays to have very different and faster types of technology than were available at that time, but you know, certainly talking to a lot of Satmetrics customers, it was around, well, this is great, but you know, response rates are going down, right? How do we extrapolate this data to now start justifying ROI? And I'm sure you see this all the time, Anand, right? That you know, the most common question is, how do I demonstrate to my board that the CX program or the EX program delivers an ROI? So that really got me thinking, moving from sort of the survey world, you know, the lagging indicators, if you like, in terms of how do we move this to predictive. And you know, I co-founded a company called OCX, which was very much focused on, or still is focused on B2B CX, and then had the you know fortunate pleasure of meeting my co-founder of Anthrolytics, a chap named Peter Dorrington, who'd been working on exactly this, right? And I think the synergy between Peter and I was very much right. You know, how do we move from lagging to future looking indicators? And so, you know, I know we're going to talk about Anthrolytics and predictive behavioral analytics a lot more during this, but, you know, that was very much the the genesis of it, right? How do we do two things? One is tell people what's going to happen, and secondarily allow them to directly link that and the actions they take to a return on investment that is justifiable at board level. And so that's how we took that journey.
Absolutely, and very interesting journey, Jonathan, because most of the CEOs or CXOs that I have been recently meeting, they are all talking about how can we move from being a reactive CX-driven organization to more a proactive CX-driven organization.
Yes.
And it all requires, if you can predict customer behavior or employee behavior based on some of their behavioral indicators. And that's what it's all about. That's where most of the CX programs are heading towards.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I think it's and I say the challenge has been technology largely, Anand, right? That this, we're a new startup, right? And we're probably the only people doing this today, certainly in the way that we do it. And so it's it's interesting, but I think the pace with which this market is going to move now is very, very quick through a number of areas, right? I think that now with AI, we're able to do a lot more things than we were able to do previously. I think also the mindset of the CXOs and the board members is now very much, if I'd walked in 3 years ago and said, oh, look, I can predict what your customer's about to do or your employee, they would have and they did laugh me out of the room, and right, when I was saying that. I walk in today and they're like, yeah, we believe you can do it. Okay, so that's the big difference.
Awesome. And I think you have also, a lot of your work emphasizes on digital empathy at scale.
Yes.
How do you see this predictive analytics enabling the synergy of empathy, efficiency at a scale?
Yeah, so I think it's a really interesting question. And again, empathy is one of these terms that has been bandied around in the industry for a long time. And I think to be empathetic, the core of being empathetic is that you need to understand how somebody feels, right? Because it's not sympathy. It's not saying, Anand, I know you're upset. Let me put an arm around your shoulder. It's saying, I understand how you feel, and I'm going to meet you, and I'm going to build my propositions so that you feel as though I'm hearing you. Okay, so, but to do that, of course, you need to understand how everybody feels about you. And of course, the challenge with the data sets that certainly CX and EX programs are working on is it's only on a subset of individuals. So if you think about, let's say you've got 100 customers, right? And I'm surveying them every day, or I'm surveying them through a normal CX program, I'm probably getting data on 5% of my customers. And I may or may not know how they feel. I may or may not ask how they feel. But of course, now if you're in a world where you can predict an emotional profile for every person every day, well, now this allows you to be empathetic, as we say, at scale. Because today, empathy is very much done on a one-to-one basis, right? So you'll see empathy in a contact center. Oh, we're empathetic. And broadly, what people are doing is saying, well, actually, when I speak to you, I'm going to listen to the tone of your voice and I'm going to be empathetic. Whereas what we can do is we can give you that information up front. So a couple of examples of how you would execute empathy at scale. One would be, right, I know a bunch of my customers, right, love me. So how am I going to communicate with those people based on the fact that I know how they feel about me? There's another segment of customers, we call it an empographic segment, of people who really dislike me and distrust me. So now how do I change my communication tone to them at scale through perhaps marketing, whatever channel you decide to use, that recognizes that they don't like us, right? So rather than me try and sell to somebody who detests the company, well, now actually perhaps I probably want to send something that demonstrates the value I bring to them, right? That I recognize that they don't like me, I recognize why, and I change my tone accordingly, rather than what we all get today, which is, hey, Anand, right, I don't care how you feel about me, but look, buy this shiny thing, So I think there's people can call it hyper-personalization, call it what you will. I call it being sort of basic human decency, right? Now imagine a world where, when you hit a self-service bot, that bot automatically knows how you feel before you hit it. So the tone is dynamically changed, or perhaps the way that you're routed, is changed. If you're a high value customer who's about to churn, well, actually, am I better off being put straight through to a well-tenured agent? And from an employee point of view, again, the same thing applies, right? If we now understand the cumulative impact of the experiences that somebody's had and how that makes them feel about us, well, we can do two things with that. One, we can say, well, actually, we know how Jonathan feels, so now let's do something about it proactively. Secondarily, I can now, at a more strategic level, start building employee or customer experiences that actually demonstrate that we are empathetic. And why is empathy important? Because if you look at any data set in the world, we did some work for a big contact center provider that showed that 87% of customers would prefer to be treated empathetically, would give you a higher NPS score for being treated empathetically and not solving the problem than you would do by solving the problem with no empathy. And so, I mean, it's common sense, right? We're human beings. We like to be recognized, and we like to be treated in a manner that meets us where we are. And we give people the data to allow them to do this at scale, which is a very long-winded way of explaining digital empathy at scale. But that's what we mean by it, right? We can predict how everybody every day feels about your brand, and provide you the information to now proactively do something with it empathetically.
Yeah, it's like giving a magic wand into the hands of the leaders. They can actually predict, and accordingly, they can have strategies how to win back employees or customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, certainly with our platform, you can then start running what if type scenarios. So, okay, well, if I think there's this great idea, rather than putting the idea into practice, I always use the example in, frontline staff, the kind of free lunch on a Thursday. Do people really care? Right? Right. Well, actually, with the Anthrolytics platform, you can build that in as what we call a moment that matters, right? And you can run it, and you can see, is that actually going to change attrition, right? Is it going to make people more motivated? Is it going to improve their productivity and employee engagement? The same with customers. So it does sound like a magic wand, obviously. I mean, but there are, I'm always I've been in the industry too long to, and it's slightly too cynical to, of course it can't solve every problem, right? But I think what it can do is it can take a quantum leap from where you are today in your data sets to where you can be, and which opens up a world of possibilities for you.
And I think the adoption rate also, I think there is a lot of chatter around predictive analytics and how we can use the data sciences and predictive analytics to manage customers or manage employees. Yeah. However, if you look in reality, there are very few companies who have actually implemented it or are making use of it. So for leaders, tuning in, who might be, stepping into this world of predictive analytics and use of predictive analytics to manage customers or manage employees, what are some foundational steps you think organizations they should take to begin this journey?
Well, I think that, the key step is data, right? I mean, none of this happens without data. Now, the way that we've built our platform is a principle of...
John, give examples for both for your VoE, Voice of Employees program, so in the employee context, as well as in the customer context.
Absolutely.
Like how absolutely. You can take it.
Yeah, sure. So I think that the fact, whether you're looking at VoE or VoC, the foundational step is data. Now, obviously, these data sets are very, very different for both areas, but the underlying principle, and I think what frightens a lot of people off from predictive analytics is a lot of companies. I have this kind of standard phrase that most AI companies go in and say, look, give me all of your data and I'll tell you something interesting. Now, as an executive in a company, I'd find that very, very scary. And so we kind of built our proposition based around the concept of skinny data. So if you think about your journey as an employee or a customer, there are only certain things that you really care about. Right? And we call those things moments that matter. And a moment that matters is an event that you experience that you care about and that drives an emotion. Because 95% of decisions are based on emotion, right? And so if we can now drill down and say, right, what are the key things people care about? Now only give me that data. So so from an employee perspective, that would be things like, if we think about frontline staff, right? Whether that be retail, contact center, hospitality, so on and so forth. Well, what do people care about, right? They probably care about the fact they've got a good team leader, right? They care about the type of work that they're doing. They care about the fact there's some kind of stability, right? That you're not canceling my holidays, you're not changing my work type, you're not changing, just basics around. You don't ask me to work overtime tomorrow when I need to take my children to a party, right? Things like that. And so the core of both of these is data, right? Does my mobile phone work, right? All of these the basic needs, if you like. So what we do is we run a calibration process which allows organizations to identify what are the moments that matter that their customers or employees or both care about. And then we identify those, and we then start using those we then go to a customer and say, look, just tell us every day who has experienced one or more moments that matter. And so what we're always trying to do is we're trying to remove these barriers or remove these silos, right? Because logically, if you think about it, and again, any leaders that are listening to this will know this, if they went to an IT team or these siloed data paths and said, look, I want all of your data and I think I can do this, right? That's a very different proposition to going in and saying, look, okay, from the CRM, I need 2 pieces of data. From the workforce management system, I need 1 piece of data, right? From the sales system, I need another piece of data. And it's very, very simple. So I think the key here is, in terms of breaking down the barriers and the silos, when you're looking at these kind of projects, is always try and minimize the data that you use. Because
Right.
the political battles involved in getting data, certainly in big organizations, I spoke to the CMO of a big bank who said, Jonathan, I love predictive analytics, but I don't have enough political capital to fight the battle for all those people who have got their arms around their own little data set, and that's their empire. I haven't got the political capital to get that data from them. So I always think data is foundational, and secondarily, it's the hard, as ridiculous as it sounds, it's the hardest thing to get hold of, and that is changing, right? But then now I think. So you need to get over that. We've tried to address that by having this concept of skinny data, minimizing the data. I think secondarily, proof of concept, right? I think with new technologies, always try a POC, right? Because whatever technology companies say about their return on investment, we work very, very hard to minimize our promises, right? Because we want people to get value from the solution, right? We want people to
Right,
buy
right.
it. But I
In
think a
fact,
POC.
it brings, in fact, I have come across a lot of clients whose biggest barrier to getting into these kind of solutions is
Mhm.
they in their mind have this preconceived notion that there is a huge volume of data which will be required, and
Yep.
that becomes a big barrier for them to engage in
Yes.
this kind of activity.
Yeah.
And
And even
you are
engage in the
saying
conversation.
yeah, and you are saying that you don't require the
Well, you don't. And I
volume
can
of
only speak
data.
for I can only speak for our own platform, right? But
Right.
so if we think about predicting attrition in a contact center, right? It's probably a very simple example because the data is all enclosed in one area, right? But the data that a contact center is analyzing every single day for KPIs, right? We need a fraction of the data. We probably need 20, maximum 30 data points from a contact center every day, right?
Awesome.
Or 20 individual data points. And all we need to know is who has experienced one or more of those data points on any given day. And then the algorithms go off and do their thing, right? Now, I saw an article the other day from somebody in a similar business to us who said, and it was a sales, their big thing was, right, we predict based on 25,000 data points. And I'm like, I don't even know how I'd get that data, right? So if I'm a leader looking at it and I say 20 to 30 data points, in my head, I kind of think, right, well, that's doable. 25,000 data points. But I do think in the AI world, particularly with technology companies, right? And enough people in this industry, Anand, that Yeah, they always think more's better. And actually, more isn't
Absolutely.
better. If I can get you 90% of the way there, right, with 10% of the effort, I know which one you're going to go for, right? I think when you start increasing the data, the gains are so marginal, it's just not worth doing it.
Absolutely. And it must be music to ears of many of my clients who would listen to this podcast, because one of the biggest challenge I see in them in getting into these kind of analytics is that they are scared of sourcing data from multiple sources, platforms that the organization has. And that's the
Yeah.
biggest barrier. So
Yes.
if we can do this magic by using a minimum amount of data but delivering the results with 95% confidence, nothing like it.
Yes, absolutely. And that's we've worked very, very, very hard. And I think the other thing is, look, have a sensible ROI. You know, I mean, I kind of look at the ROIs, and I've sold products over the years which claim all sorts of wonderful things, right? In the reality, do they actually deliver it, right? And it's really hard to justify an ROI like that. But now if I can tell you that, so let me give you an example, right? We did some work for a telco, and we did an A/B test, right? It was a POC, and they were upselling, right? It was in an emerging market, so monthly contracts, no, no long 2-3 year contracts, and so every month they had to get on the phone, right, and make sure their competitors weren't selling to them. So we said, look, that's fine, but the majority of your revenue comes from probably 16%, right? It's the old 80-20 rule broadly. Now, if we can tell you out of that 16%, which people are most likely to buy this month and for the highest value, what's that going to look like for you? And so we did an A/B test, right? They carried on with half of those people doing what they normally did, right? Just blanket outbound text messages, emails, cold calls, blah, blah, blah. And the most growth they'd ever seen in a month in annual revenue per user, average revenue per user was 6%, right? By telling
Okay.
them, yeah, but by telling them who was
Uh,
most likely to buy for the highest amount of money, the first month they used Anthrolytics, they had an increase of 82% in average revenue per
wow.
user.
From 6% to 82%.
Correct. I mean, it's
That's
huge,
massive
right?
incremental
And
growth.
but it's logical, Anand, right? If I'm ringing up people who I know love me, who I know are ready to buy, and I know have the economic capability to buy, of course I'm going to buy. I'm going to make more money. But so the concept of the ROI is very, very simple. The trick is knowing who those people are, and what we allow you to do is know who those people are. So that's so I think when you start looking at software, I think it's critical to understand, can I link this action for this customer to a return on investment? And of course, with Anthrolytics, because we're predicting every individual every day, and you can now say, okay, well, here's a cohort of people who are ready to buy. Well, now it's very simple to link the ROI to it, right? I've got this cohort of people. I made them an offer. They bought at a higher rate than they normally buy. And so consequently, well, that's very easy to link the ROI to, isn't it? The same with employees, right? If I tell you these 90 people are going to resign
Absolutely.
for these reasons, and you proactively change the experiences they're having, and actually only 10 resign, well, there's a direct link to the ROI. So I'm very much about, right, how do we actually link an ROI? That's the big
That's
thing
where
for
I
me.
think you have often advocated building or using predictive analytics for all stakeholder and not just for customers, but even
Oh,
for the employees. It's got
yes.
huge value, right?
Oh, huge value. And then I think, yeah, and there's always this elusive thing in the CX and EX industry, right? Everyone say, oh, it's my employee. You're right. The employees create the customer experience. And of course, to a greater or lesser degree, they do, right? But there's a lot of other things involved as well, as we all know. But now imagine a world where if I can predict the motivation and engagement levels of my employees and they're high, right? And I can predict my customer emotion and their next likely actions. And if we see trending upwards in both of those things, well, now you've got that elusive link between employee experience and customer experience. And so how does having a motivated, well-tenured, highly engaged workforce directly link to the financial outcomes of my customers? And so with Anthrolytics, you're able to do that.
Yes, this should be music to a lot of ears. Which brings me to my last question.
Yeah.
Looking forward, and which is more about future, where
Yeah.
do you see the biggest opportunities for predictive analytics in shaping the CX and EX that companies are running? What role do you think collaboration between technology partners like, say, XEBO.ai or
Yeah.
Anthrolytics, what kind of role we can play in this evolution?
So I think I think it's very easy for a company like mine to run around and go, surveys are dead, right? They're not, and they never will be, right? Because but I see the roles changing slightly, right? I think that today they are the source of truth, right? I think in the future, which is just as, if not more valuable, I see them becoming the calibration mechanism for platforms like mine.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So, because look, I can't magically say what you feel about an experience, and I can't magically say what you feel about a sequence of experiences. So, the way that we calibrate the platform is very obviously on customer feedback. Now, we don't need that on an ongoing basis, but of course, if you think about it, at periodic times, the system needs to be recalibrated because things in the world change, obviously. So I think there's going to be this move from the sole source of truth to calibration. Now, if you think about the value of your platform in calibrating platforms like mine, where you can now directly link to a return on investment, I believe that creates a far higher value as a combined proposition than we can just survey your customers, right? I think there's a lot more value to it because you're now linking in. I think that where it's also going to go to is that you're going to be moving from predictive, and this is things that we're working on at the moment, to prescriptive, right? So and also call them robots, call it agentic AI, whatever you want, right? But I just think a lot of the people that you deal with and a lot of the leaders that I deal with are so busy, right? That are they really going to look at another dashboard? And there's so many dashboards, and do people really understand dashboards? So what we're looking at building is the components that say, okay, Anand, here's what's happening in the data, right? Now go and do this. Right, so we're moving it from predictive to prescriptive, and then the next step is the agentic AI, which is okay, Anand, right? You don't need to worry about that. We've taken care of these actions. So these 10,000 customers, right? We've actually sent a message to the CRM to go and do this, right? You don't even need to worry about it. So that's where we're moving. So I think that's
going on. I think there's a lot of synergy, and most of the clients that we speak to, they are saying that we are data overloaded. We are getting data from several dashboards within the organization, be it customer experience dashboard, be it sales dashboard, be it quality assurance dashboard. There are so much data which is coming, and they are craving for prescriptive data.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, let me give you and your leaders a little prediction. I believe in 5 years, dashboards are going to be pretty much dead unless you're a business analyst. And I think certainly in the next 3 months, we're going to have the prescriptive, and we're going to be telling people, we're going to be sending emails which just say, this is happening, do this. Go and spend time with these employees, go and do this with these customers. And by the end of Q3, we're going to have the agentic piece, which will automate it. So I actually think dashboards are going to be dead. I can't think of anything nicer than my platform that has no dashboards, but provides people the information they need when they need it, along with what they should do. And in certain circumstances, automate that. So that's where we're going. That's my prediction for where the industry is going to go. I could have egg on my face in a few years' time, Anand, but that's where I think it's going to go.
So we are not only predicting employees' experience or customer experience, but we are predicting the future of the industry also.
Absolutely, my friend. Yeah, that's where we're going.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan.
No problem at all.
sharing these insights, and I'll watch out for this new prediction of yours for the industry.
See what happens, eh? Yeah.
Absolutely. That brings me to my round two, which is a quick rapid fire question round. And
Okay.
I've got some random questions which have been selected my analyst team. So
Okay.
I'll throw them at you. 5 questions. You are happy.
This sounds very ominous, Anand. Very ominous. I don't know.
It's very fun. It's very fun and it's very simple. It'll tell us a lot about you, who Jonathan is like a person, and we can predict about you.
That's what I worry about. I don't know.
So if you are ready to go, I'll start shooting the questions for you. Morning person or you are a night owl?
Absolutely morning person. I'm the so my wife came into the living room at 5:30 this morning when I was already on calls, already having coffee. And I just don't do well in the afternoons. So I'm absolutely morning. Absolutely morning. Yeah.
Awesome. What's your go-to comfort food?
Oh, well, do you know what? If I've been traveling, right, it's an English dish called shepherd's pie, which is like it's kind of meat and vegetables with mashed potato over the top. And do you know what? There's just something wonderfully comforting that I just adore it. So if I've been traveling and I get home and I want a simple, easy, comforting meal, that's the one for me.
And between books or podcasts, what will you choose?
See, it's tricky. I feel as though I should say books, but I'm a podcast addict nowadays. Do you know what? If you'd have asked me 5 years ago, it would have been books. Nowadays, I love a podcast. But it's back to this curation of data, right? You know, I'm fed with things that interest me, so I love that.
Nice. Now, if you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Well, I'm not the best traveler in the world. I travel a lot and I've been all around the world, but I'm a terrible traveler, right? I'd love to think that I would enjoy trekking through a jungle, right? In my head, I think that's wonderful. The reality I know is I get there and go, this is awful. But so I'm going to go Hawaii because I've never been to Hawaii.
Nice.
Really, yeah.
Beautiful. So if someone gives me a choice to travel anywhere in the world, I would go home.
Yeah. Do you know what? I wish I'd thought of that because do you know what? Actually, I'm going to change my answer, Anand. You're right. Home is where I would travel to. Yeah.
So what would be your movie or TV show that you can watch again and again and again?
Do you know what? I'm a little bit odd on this because I never rewatch anything at all, because
Nothing.
because I've got such a bad memory on it. Do you know what? I've got a friend of mine who can watch a film 20 years ago and recite what happened. My daughter's the same. And I'm the guy who my daughter says, oh, it's this actor, gives me a name. And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, Dad, it's that program you really loved. I'm like, oh, that person. So I've got such a short attention span. But if I was going to pick one that I haven't watched again and again, but I could, is probably Ted Lasso, which I just loved as a series. So I might take this as inspiration and go and watch Ted Lasso again. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jonathan. A heartfelt thank you for sharing all the insights, your expertise, and even vision that you have got for the industry, where the industry will be, or predicting where the industry would be moving. We hope this conversation has sparked ideas and encouraged our audience to explore how predictive analytics can transform their VoC or employee experience program. Until next time, keep innovating and shaping remarkable experiences. Thank you so much.
Thank you.